for sure. You mentioned something really important here, and I don't want to gloss over it, and that is this idea of we don't want to bamboozle people by using fancy words, but we want to use words that are more descriptive and accurately describe what we are talking about. So how do we build that balance? Because I know that I find myself using words like juxtapose when there's probably an easier and more clear way to describe comparing well, the word is compare, isn't it? I don't need to use that kind of 20 cents word when there's a 1 cent word that can replace it. How do we manage that, I guess, in real time as well?
Well, I think the first thing to do is to go deep into your motivation when you're speaking. I talk about 2 human habits which really get in the way of us getting the ball over the net, of us being fully heard, of people really getting what you're saying. And the first of those is looking good, which is what you're talking about. That's why I put the H of honesty in there, being clear and straight. It's not about looking good, it's about getting the ball over the net, not posing. Looking good tends to lead to competitive speaking. It leads to that flowery language. And although, of course, jargon and in words can be also just as easily the result of laziness and habit, going forward to your point, let's develop some synergy here. I mean, all that kind of business speak, I would strip that right out of sales presentations and keep it elegant and classic and straightforward. So looking good is a motivation that we have to be aware of. If you stand in front of a room of people to make a sales presentation and your main motivation is to impress them with yourself, you're selling the wrong thing, aren't you? I mean, you're not actually selling yourself, unless you want a job, of course, and in which case that's completely the objective here. But if you're representing a product or a service, a company, then that's what needs to impress them. Yes, they need to feel that you're capable, confident, competent, impressive speaker. You're good at what you do because that'll reflect on the business, but it's not the main motivation. And looking good also tends to give rise to the kind of professionally unimpressible responses in conversation. I know. Oh, my dogs are just saying hello. We're working from home. I have 4 huskies, so they're quite long. So looking good, it needs to be something we're aware of and that doesn't become the focus of our communication. And I said 2 things, so I ought to follow that through. Otherwise, people will be saying, what was the second one? The second one's even more powerful. It's being right. The American author Harville Hendrix said you can either be right or be in a relationship. There's a great deal of truth in that. If being right is what we get about, then it's very divisive. And unfortunately, we've seen the results of that all over the world in the last year or 2, because the easiest way to be right is to make somebody else wrong. If I make you wrong, then I'm suppressing you, I'm pressing you down, I'm putting you down, and I'm elevating myself because I'm righter. And that is what tends to lead to these silos and entrenched opinions. We go out on the internet seeking validation of our views, not challenge. Barack Obama said, I like to listen to people, especially when I disagree with them. Well, that's pretty rare now. We tend to prefer to listen to people we agree with. We go out and seek them on the internet, and so you get silos, and so you get all this rabid QAnon stuff going on, where people are fomenting this in amongst. There's another good word, fomenting. They're fomenting this amongst themselves, and it becomes more and more rabid, unfortunately, because it's not challenged. So we need to be open to challenge. I mean, it's also, if you're selling, a very important thing to be cool with feedback, even if it's negative.
Sure.
As opposed to defensive,
How does... Sorry to interject there, Julian, but you're painting a picture here, and I can visualize it as you're saying it, of a sales leader, sales manager in a room with a team of salespeople, and they are trying to, they're open to being challenged. They are accepting of that. They're hopefully using appropriate language, that they're not using acronyms that half the team understands and half the team doesn't. And they're trying to communicate with the team that we want as a company to do this, this, and this, right? How do we do that without... with adding a level of authority to the conversation? Or do we need to add a level of authority to the conversation to get people to do tasks that's part of their job? So we're not trying to win heart. Well, maybe we are trying to win hearts and minds, but we're not doing a TED talk about saving the planet or something along those lines. We're trying to motivate our team to do the best job they can within the confines of it's a job, you're getting paid to do it. Let's hustle down and do the hard work. How do we communicate that? And I guess the question I'm asking is authority a layer that we need to include in there, or is authority irrelevant if people like us, trust us, and believe in us?
I think trust is an important word, but authority, yes. I mean, let me answer that with two things. One is the listening you're speaking into, and the other one is the bullseye of speaking. So we always speak into a listening. That's because every human being has an individual listening. Your listening is different from mine. We listen through a set of filters. And part of the art of management is to be understanding those filters. And that actually means the manager needs to listen. You can't lead people if you don't understand them, really. Mm-hmm. So the authority, unless you're a towering figure and people will follow you through the fires of hell just because you're amazing. And, not many of us are quite that amazing. So it's really important to connect with people, to have a relationship that's built on listening to them and understanding their filters. Filters like their attitudes, their values, their beliefs, their intentions, their expectations. You can make all that up in your head, but you may well be wrong. And it's quite good to have conversations with people. The better you know your team, the better you can lead them. Also, they feel in relationship with you. Also, that listening you speak into is created partially by you. So it's a synthesis of two things: the listening of the person or people in the room put together, and what they know about you. So the moment you walk into the front of that room, if you've been leading that team for a few years, they have a listening for you because of the way you've been. So our words and our actions create a listening for us. If you want to have authority, you need to behave in a way that creates authority. And that is to say, not people-pleasing, not weak, not going back on your word. Also, integrity is the I of my four principles of powerful speaking. HAIL, H-A-I-L. I is integrity, which means being your word. If you say it, it happens. We'll do that over a period of time, and you create authority, don't you? So the moment you step out in front of people, they're listening because whatever you say is going to happen. And the opposite of that does not create authority. So that's speaking into the listening. It's knowing the listening you're speaking into and creating a listening that fosters that feeling of authority. The other answer I wanted to give you is the why. Because, Simon Sinek's excellent TED Talk talks about the why. I always do it as a bullseye with why at the center, and then around it, what, and then around that, how. The three things you need to explain to people if you're saying, here's the new target, or here's what we're going for, or here's a new project. The thing everybody wants to know is, why are we going to do this? And if you give them a why that's passionate and exciting and, picture this a year from now, that kind of why, the outcome, this is what we're going to achieve, you will have authority, you will have people on side immediately. Then you can deal with the what exactly we're going to do and exactly how we're going to do it.